This is lecture number 4 of chapter 4, that is market forces of supply and demand. Today we are going to discuss surplus. It is also known as excess supply when the quantity supplied is greater than quantity demanded. Here we are taking an example, and in this example there is equilibrium at price $3. You can see here that at price that is $3 there is equilibrium. Here demand and supply curves intersect each other, and the quantity is 15 units. If I move down from this point, so here the quantity is 15 units. So we can say that here the price is that is $3. It is the equilibrium price, and the quantity that is 15 units is the equilibrium quantity. But for some reasons the price is now $5. Now the price rises from $3 to $5, and now price is $5 here, and we know that equilibrium price would have been $3. So what does the consumer do? He now buys less latte than the quantity demanded is 9. So here when you see that if the price increases from $3 to $5, that means that the price of latte become more, that means that lattes become more expensive now. So demand decreases from 15 to 9 units. So a consumer is now buying, you can say, 9 lattes at price $5. And this is a point where you can say that the price crosses the demand curve. Now on supply side, supplier decides to sell 25 lattes at a new price level, that is $5. As price increases, so supplier decides to supply more lattes, that is now he is going to supply 25 lattes at $5 price, and at $5 seller is willing to supply 25 lattes. Now what's the problem here? People want to consume a lattes, but on the supply side they want to supply 25 lattes. When you have more lattes than you need, then it is known as surplus. Then here you can say that when the demand is less than the supply, then this is known as surplus. You are demanding less amount of lattes, but there is a larger supply of lattes in the market, so here is a factor that is known as surplus. So here the surplus generated. So this results in a surplus of 16 lattes. That means supply is of 25 and the demand is of 9. So the difference between 25 and 9 is 16. So here the surplus is of 16 lattes. Facing a surplus, sellers try to increase sales by cutting price. Here let's suppose Starbucks and Peet's looks around all the extra inputs, that is extra lattes, that is their supply is greater than the demand for lattes. So what do they do to get rid of this surplus? They can cut the prices of lattes. They have a sale. They sell the lattes at lower price now. This sale attracts the buyers, and this causes the quantity demanded to rise as price goes down from $5 to $4. quantity supplied falls from this point to this one, that is initially it was 25 and now it is 20. And when quantity supplied falls, which reduces the surplus. Here the demanders and suppliers are moving towards equilibrium. This is equilibrium and both demanders and suppliers are moving towards equilibrium. However, we still have a surplus here at $4 price here at this point, because it's supposed to be at $3, and at the quantity of 15 units, here we still have surplus. That means that here you can see that 12 is quantity demanded and 20 is quantity supplied. So 20 minus 12 is equals to 8. So we have surplus of 8 lattice here. So these red dotted lines are showing the surplus. Now price continues to fall until market reaches equilibrium. Price again falls to $3, where quantity supply becomes equal to quantity demanded and the market reaches equilibrium. Here the equilibrium price is $3 and equilibrium quantity is 15 lattice. Now next comes the shortage, or in other words you can say excess demand. When the quantity demanded is greater than quantity supplied, then it is known as shortage or excess demand. Consider that the price of one latte is $1. You like latte and you demand more lattes because it's inexpensive now. That means it's cheap now. Quantity demanded will be 21 lattes at $1 price. So this is the demand curve and you are demanding 21 lattes at $1, and quantity supplied is 5 lattes. Here you can see that this is supply curve and quantity supplied is 5 lattes at $1, because Starbucks is not willing to sell more lattes at this price. So here Starbucks is selling only 5 lattes at $1 price. Remember that at lower price people demand more and at higher price people demand less. On the other side, at a lower price sellers sell less of their products and at higher price they sell more. Graphically, it is shown that at $1 suppliers are at this point and demanders are at this point. Here you can see that at $1 quantity supplied is 5 lattes and quantity demanded is 21 lattes, which means that at a lower price people want 21 lattes, but Starbucks is supplying only 5 lattes at this price, that is at $1. This results in shortage of 16 lattes, that is 21 minus 5 is 16. So here we are facing a shortage of 16 lattes. This distance from this point to this is the shortage, as quantity demanded is greater than quantity supplied. Facing the shortage, sellers raise the prices because sellers are not willing to sell more lattes at $1. So the price rises from $1 to $2. As there is great demand for lattes, sellers raise the price. Now the price is $2. This causes quantity demand to fall because lattice become more expensive now. So the demand falls. Originally it was at 21. Now the quantity demanded is at 18. That means that quantity demanded decreases because price increases now. And people want less lattice at higher price. But on supply side, quantity supplied increases from this point to this point. Initially it was 5 units and now it's at 10 units. That means that suppliers are now selling 10 lattice at $2. As suppliers are making more money, so this reduces the shortage. At $2 quantity supplied is 10 lattice and quantity demanded is 18 lattice. So here is the shortage of 8 lattice here. That is 18 minus 10, so the shortage is 8 lattice. Now price continues to rise until market reaches equilibrium. Now at $3, quantity demanded becomes equal to quantity supplied, that is 15 lattice, and market is now in equilibrium. Whether it's a shortage or surplus in the market forces are going to try to move towards the equilibrium, and they maintain equilibrium in the market. Now comes 3 steps to analyzing changes in equilibrium. To determine the effects of any event, step 1 is decide whether the event shifts supply curve, demand curve, or both. Step 1 requires knowing all the things that can shift demand and supply, like the non-price determinants of demand and supply. Second step is to decide in which direction the curve shifts. Is it a positive or negative for supply and demand? And then third step is the use of supply and demand diagram to see how the shifts changes in equilibrium for price and quantity. Here comes the example, that is the market for hybrid cars. On vertical axis, there is price of hybrid cars, and on horizontal axis there is quantity of hybrid cars. We have supply curve and a demand curve here, and here we have equilibrium price, that is P1, and equilibrium quantity, that is Q1. So now example 1 is, let's say there is a shift in demand. In the event that causes a shift in demand is the increase in price of gas. We know that cars run on gas and hybrid cars use less gas. So step 1 is, we know that the demand curve shifts. And now you can see that as the price of gas increases, so people want to buy hybrid cars. So demand for hybrid cars increases. That means that demand curve shifts outward. That is, it shifts from D1 to D2. Now step 2 is, in which way demand curve shifts. We are talking about the cost of something that is input to the cars that uses less of it versus cars that use more of it. So it's kind of a substitute. So hybrid is a substitute for gas cars. So demand is going to shift right. Demand curve shifts from D1 to D2 in right direction. This shift causes an increase in the price and quantity of hybrid cars. You can see that as demand increases, so price also increases and quantity also increases. This is our original supply curve for hybrid cars, this one S1. When price of gas rises from P1 to P2, originally it was at P1 and quantity Q1. When the price of gas rises, people want to purchase hybrid cars. So the demand for hybrid cars increases from D1 to D2 and quantity also rises from Q1 to Q2. When people want more of the hybrid cars, then prices also increase, and here the price rises from P1 to P2. When price rises, producers supply a large quantity of hybrid cars. Even though supply curve has not shifted, it is the movement along the supply curve. So you can see here that when price rises from P1 to P2, this give incentive for suppliers to supply the larger quantity of hybrid cars, even though supply curve has not shifted. Just there the movement along the supply curve is shown from this point to this point. Now comes terms for shift versus movement along curve. A change in supply. A shift in the supply curve occurs when a non-price determinant of supply changes, like technology or input costs, and change in the quantity supplied is a movement along a fixed supply curve occurs when price of the product changes. And now coming towards change in demand, it's a shift in the demand curve that occurs when a non-price determinant of demand changes, like income or number of buyers, or you can say substitutes, tastes and preferences, etc. And change in the quantity demand is a movement along a fixed demand curve. It occurs when price changes. So it's all about a change in supply or demand curve and change in quantity supplied or quantity demanded. That is a shift in demand or supply curve and movement along both curves, that is demand and supply curve. Now comes example 2, a shift in supply. Event is new technology reduces cost of producing hybrid cars, so again reduces those input costs, so it's less expensive for hybrid car producers to produce more cars as they are making more money. So at the same price they are willing to supply more product. This one, you can see this phenomena through this diagram as well. If cost of producing cars decreases from P1 to P2, that means if there is a decrease in the cost of producing cars from P1 to P2, then suppliers are willing to supply more cars. So supply curve shifts right from S1 to S2, and quantity supplied also increases from Q1 to Q2. This shows that the shift causes price to fall and quantity to rise. Now next is a shift in both supply and demand. Here the price of gas rises and new technology reduces production cost. This causes both curves to shift. Here we are just combining two examples that we just went through in previous slides. Here both curves shift right. First, let's take the price of gas rises. You can see here that price increases. Demand curve shifts from D1 to D2. Because price of gas goes up, you want to buy more hybrid cars or you want to demand more hybrid cars. So the demand shifts right from D1 to D2. Now supplier switches to the new technology that reduces the production cost, means supplier is making more money per car. It's less expensive to make cars now, so supplier is going to supply more cars and is earning more money. So supply curve shifts right from S1 to S2 as the supply of cars also increases in the market. The new equilibrium in this simultaneous shift is Q2. This is the new equilibrium quantity, that is Q2 at price P2. What happened here? The quantity rises. There is more, you can say that more cars being produced and demand for those cars increased as well. The effect on price is ambiguous because it's a simultaneous change. We don't know completely what is going to happen to price here. Here we see that price went up from P1 to P2. That is because we see gap here that the demand increased more than supply. You can see here that the gap between demand curves, that is D1 and D2, is wider as compared to a gap between supply curves, that is S1 and S2. If you see the gap between supply curves S1 and S2 and between demand curves, that is D1 and D2, it looks like the change in demand was larger than change in supply. It could be quite possible if these gaps were the same, then price could appear to have stayed the same, going up marginally or even possibly going down marginally. It all depends on how you draw the graph. So we considered ambiguous. If we know for a fact that demand increased more than supply, we can say that price increased. Now from this diagram you can see that the gap between demand curves is wider than supply curves, or you can say that demand increased more than that of supply, so this means that price increases, or you can say that there is a rise in price here. But on the other side, let's say price of gas rises and new technology reduces production costs. So step 3 continues. See the gap here between supply curves, that is S1 and S2, and between demand curves, that is D1 and D2. Now here the gap between supply curves S1 and S2 is wider as compared to gap between demand curves D1 and D2. So if the supply increases more than the demand, that means that price falls. You can see here that price goes down from P1 to P2. So a lot depends on the gap between supply and demand curve. Here if you can see that there is a wider gap between S1 and S2 as compared to D1 and D2. So it means that whenever there is you can say that supply there is increase in supply curve that is more than demand curve, so this causes price to decrease from P1 to P2. So that's all from chapter number 4.